Hey, what's up, Ziguanas? This is day 1 of the 30 days of Zig Coding Challenge. Join me as I apply over 2 decades of professional programming experience and around 15 years of code teaching experience to master a new programming language. The name of the language is Zig. My name is Dusan. Welcome to Zignited. Okay, before I start speaking about Zig itself, I would like to address something important to learning a new programming language and learning in general. And that is how one should allocate a time to practice and to learn the theory. So let's start with a bad example. This would be if someone just watches tutorials, for example, and doesn't do anything practically and hopes to learn a programming language in this case. So this, of course, doesn't work. This is something that probably most of us went through. I personally have. And this is something that we could say, we could name this person a tutorial junkie. So, or person at some point in life, right? Why this is wrong? Because simply you cannot learn anything, really learn anything, if you just observe. You have to practice things, of course. I mean, this is obvious, but I know it should be obvious. But personally, I had a lot of experience when my students didn't want to practice anything, and they thought they are going to be able to learn a programming language without coding a single line, just by listening to someone teach programming language or watching some tutorial and something like that. Of course, that doesn't work. And much better approach is to actually practice. And on this line, on this graph, we can see this line. Yeah, I didn't explain what the graph represents. It's written, but let me explain. So the x-axis of the graph represents the years. In this case, in my example, it's like around 2 years of learning. But of course, you can stretch it to be larger, or you can squeeze it. It depends on your time that is available. So this is like how much time in total you want to spend on mastering something. And the y-axis is the percentage of time you have to share between practicing something and just learning the theory of something. So this graph is about that. So then if I go back to the previous example, just to explain, in this case, you see that basically this red line is on the x-axis itself, which means that person, in this case, doesn't practice anything, just watches some tutorials, and that's basically the worst thing you can do. So you don't have any time spent on practice. So you can consider on this graph and on the following one, the surface above the line as a time dedicated to the theory, and the surface below the line, the time dedicated to practice. So you see in the previous example, it was 0. So a person doesn't practice at all, just watches tutorials. So 100% of time is spent on watching tutorials. And in this case, this is let's say the suggestion how it should be, so that more time you spend learning something, you should spend more and more time on practicing things instead of just like watching a tutorial or reading some documentation and so on. This is simply the only way, maybe not the only way, but the fastest way to learn and to master something. And if you apply this to Zig learning or any other programming language for that matter, you can become the master of that programming language. Now, I'm speaking here just about the learning process. I'm not speaking about what is your goal with the programming language and how this affects the, let's say, the salaries or something similar. This is strictly speaking about the percentage of time spent on learning something and how you learn. Do you learn just like in theory, or do you practice something? So this is more about that. This also coincides, so let's now compare these two. This coincides with the actual knowledge that you will gain. So this graph is not about the knowledge, it's about time spent learning and how you spend your time learning. But it is closely related to the actual experience that one can get if they learn in one or the other way. So of course, someone can actually watch tutorials over and over again, so someone can repeat 10 times the same tutorial, and they will gain some knowledge, and their knowledge will be something, I don't know, let's say 20-30% of some topic. But what is wrong with this? First of all, it's very specific to the tutorial itself, so the person will not be able to apply the knowledge when something is different in the real situation. And second of all, this knowledge will vanish much faster than when someone is actually practicing things, because you get this muscle memory as well. It's like driving a car, for example. We can compare coding to driving a car. So, can you learn to drive a car if you just watch someone drive a car and the person can explain everything to you, but you cannot learn to drive a car if you don't sit at the wheel and drive your car. And if you do, you will get also this muscle memory, so drivers know. So now after a few years of driving the car, each of you doesn't even think about driving, they just like automatically drive. So we are speaking about this. So if you repeat something over and over again, if you practice things, you become a master. And that's why I recommend to all of my students to practice more and more as we move forward to more and more complex topics. I recommend to my students that they practice more and more without me on their own. And then if they have some questions, to come back to me and ask me. By the way, most of my students are Python students, so I teach mostly Python. Most of the students are interested in that, but I do have some other students in JavaScript, Java, Solidity, and so on. Back to this topic. So why I'm actually showing this graph in the video about Zig, because I want to also apply the same principles that I recommend to my students. I want to apply myself. So this is, let's say, a plan how I'm planning to learn Zig. As I mentioned, for those of you who watched the first introductory video, I mentioned that I have zero experience in Zig, and I want to apply this simple system on learning Zig. And I truly believe this is the fastest way you can learn something, and the best way, the most thorough way that you can understand something deeper than, let's say, if you just watch tutorials without practicing. So this is my plan, as this is 30 days challenge. So you can think about this timeline here as 30 days instead of 2 years, which means that the more I advance through this challenge, I will practice more and more, and I will, let's say, read the documentation less. Of course, I have to start now somewhere. I have to read some documentation because I don't have any clue how to code in Zig. So I'm now at this stage here, at the very coordinate 0, 0 coordinates of coordinate system. So I have zero knowledge of Zig, and I have to, let's say, at this moment, I have to focus my 100% of my time on theory, because I don't have anything to practice. I don't know what to code, because I don't know Zig. I don't know anything about it. So that being said, let's move on to Zig itself. And actually, let's do something first. Let's speak about one more aspect before we jump into Zig. And that's related to the previous topic. So the previous topic was about how I think I should spend time learning Zig. How much should I focus on theory, how much on practice. And this is more about why someone should learn Zig and why someone shouldn't learn Zig or any other programming language. So you can see here the title. This is the survey on Stack Overflow for the year 2023. Top paying technologies. Zig is the first, so the best paying technology. I want to show you this as an example of what you shouldn't consider when you want to learn some programming language, because that can easily change. So if we jump over to the previous year, 2024, you can see that Zig dropped here at 14th, I think, place in 1 year. So if someone starts learning Zig just for the money and they see something like this, probably they will quit. So this is not a good idea. Of course, all of us, we need money, but that shouldn't be the primary goal of learning a programming language. And I believe in this case, it drops so significantly because there are so few Zig developers. So if there are like 5 of them, and then if 2 of them get a promotion or if they got fired, then it will dramatically influence the average salary because there are just few of them. So I believe this was the case. So I don't think the Zig salary is something that you should think about anyway. And let's now speak about this thing that I mentioned, that Zig is not so popular programming language. So there are very few programmers that use Zig. So this is again Stack Overflow survey 2023, and you can see Zig is somewhere at the bottom here. So it was 0.83% of people who were participating here. They stated that they use Zig. So 0.83%. And if we scroll up, we see that the top language is JavaScript with 63.61% of all participants. So it's much smaller community of Zig developers. And if we go to the current year, we see Zig is also at the bottom, but it did increase by approximately 0.3%, which is basically around 30%. And most of the programming languages went down. So if you research here, you will see that most of the programming languages are losing their popularity, and Zig is one of the languages that are actually gaining popularity. So this is the state of Zig now at this moment. Just like 1.1% of people are using Zig at this moment. So very few developers. And in my opinion, this is actually a good thing. It's also a gamble. So it can happen that Zig never becomes a very popular programming language in the future, and that someone is just like learning Zig and losing time, if you can say like that. But I don't think learning anything is losing time. It's just you're going to be able to apply this knowledge maybe on some other programming, working with some other programming language. But it also can be a good thing. So if you gamble and learn some of these bottom languages, and if they go higher, if their demand becomes higher, then you can be one of the first seniors after a few years that will then have a choice where to work, and you will be very wanted. So, like I said, from this point, you cannot know if Zig will become popular, and personally, I don't care. I just want to learn it because I heard good things about it. And that brings me to the next topic. Again, Stack Overflow survey for 2023, the most admired and desired languages. So in the year 2023, Zig is here. It was the 4th most admired language. And just to explain how this system works, like how these statistics, what they actually are about, this means that the people who started using Zig from the year before are saying that they love it. So this is basically this graph here shows that how many people who started using the language like it and love it actually. And you see here that Zig is number 4 for the year 2023, and if we go 1 year later, it's at the 3rd place, so here. So it's after Elixir and I think Rust here. Yeah, Rust is the most admired language. If you just consider this red side, the red dot, right side, the red dot, you see that it's number 3 in this case. In year 2024, it was number 4 in the previous year. But actually what matters is also this span, so the distance between the blue and the red dot, because the wider the line, it means the more desirable actually languages. It's not only the number itself. So if we just compare the lengths, then Elixir is number 1 and Zig is number 2, which tells me that people who actually work with the language love it, which has to mean something. There has to be something about the language if the people who are actually using the language, which is not so popular, love it. So I could have easily started this channel about Elixir. I also heard good things about it. I also have zero experience, but I decided to go with Zig in this case. Okay, so that being said, this is the reason why I chose Zig. So it is not a popular language. It is quite the opposite. And there are very few people who are actually working with it compared to the global software developing community, right? But this is also something that, in my eyes, makes it very interesting. Okay, so the next thing is to actually do something with Zig, right? So I will open up here, just to find it, here. Gemini, so AI. By the way, before you can see what I typed here. I typed what are the basic data types in Zig programming language. But before I run it, I would just like to address the AI and the state of AI at this moment. Okay, so I don't think using AI is a good thing, especially for beginners, when they start learning some coding, let's say first programming language or the second programming language. I don't think it's a good thing to depend on AI to write you a code for anything as you learn the language, because it's known to hallucinate and it's actually not intelligent. So yes, AI stands for artificial intelligence, but actually it's not intelligent in a way as humans are, that we understand the topic. It just like repeats something that it saw somewhere on the internet, and it can repeat good things and bad things, meaning like the correct answers and incorrect answers and code and so on. But what it is good at, it is good at summarizing things and concepts. So I will use it in that way. I will use AI to speed up my investigation of a language. And you can see on my screen the prompt, what are the basic data types in the Zig programming language? So this is what I'm going to ask Gemini to see what it will say, because I want to have first the general idea how Zig is structured so that I have an overview. Okay, so let's see. Okay, control performance, blah, blah, integers, signed and unsigned. Okay, this is expected for the low level language. So this is very typical. Oh, it's actually nice range. 128. There aren't many languages that have 128 bits integers. So, okay, this was expected. Signed and unsigned integers. Then let's see, pointer size integers, I size, U size. Okay, this is also the case in, for example, Rust. This is the type that depends on the architecture. So if you have a computer that has 64-bit architecture, it will be, U size will be 64 bits. If you have, and I size as well. If you have 32 bits architecture, it will be 32 bits. So this is also something that is, let's say, expected. Then let's see this, C compatible integers. Zig also offers integer types of CABI, compatibility such as C char, C short. Yeah, I heard about this. So I've never seen a single line of Z code, but I did a little bit of research, and I heard about Zig being compatible with C and it integrating with C in an easy way. So this is one of the things that proves that. Okay, so as you can see, I'm just like going quickly through this. I just want to first have the general idea about the language before I start running the first line of the code. So okay, this part is for C compatibility. I guess we will see much more about similar things. Then let's see the next one, arbitrary bit weight integers. While not always considered basic, Zig supports integers with arbitrary bit weights. Okay, this is very interesting. I've never seen this before. Yes, I've never seen this before. However, the fixed size type listed above are the most common. Okay, so yeah, this would be interesting to research when this is useful. Maybe at some really like embedded programming or something. Floating point numbers. Several floating point types. Okay, the standards, F16, F32, F64, again, it's very weird. So this F8, it's not so common. I've never seen it before. So it's interesting to see that it supports so many different sizes. C compatible floating point, again, this is the C compatibility. Booleans represents a logical value which can be either true or false. Okay, this is standard. Void, absence of value. So yeah, this is similar in many other programming languages. Optional types. Okay, while not a distinct base type. Any type in Zig can be made optional by prefixing it with, okay, I've seen also this with some languages. Not for the type, but for something similar. Yeah, so something like this. Okay. I mean, actually, yeah, it is a type, yes. Other fundamental types. Zig has several other special purpose types. No return. Indicates the function will never return to its caller. Functions that always panic or enter infinite loop. This is interesting. The type of types themselves. This is used in compile time metaprogramming. This is also interesting. Any error represents an error code. Zig's error handling mechanism often involves functions returning a type combined with the error, with an error set or any error. Okay, this is also interesting. Comtime int, comtime float. Okay, so this is so they can be built into the binaries. So stability and faster execution. Nice. Any opeg. For type erased pointers, often in C interrupt scenarios. Again, C. Integration with C, that's nice. Strings, okay, this is interesting. It's important to note that Zig does not have dedicated string type in the same way. That's also very weird. Slices of view 8 bytes, okay. Often null terminated when interacting with C or, okay. Again, it's very closely related to C. That's actually a good thing because I believe it will help Zig to gain much more, let's say, it will be much faster adopted by people who are already working with C. These data types of building blocks, okay. Yeah, okay, so it's interesting. So I always like to start with the simplest data types, so with integers. So that would be my first type, actually, group of types that I would start with here as well. But before I do that, let's see how we can write the hello world code So here, if I go here, let's see, this is the official Ziglang.org. Can we write here? Let's see if we say get started. Okay, this is the documentation. They have to have some REPL or something that we can use. Okay, let's select any of these, doesn't matter. Okay, so let's see first if this works. Okay, it did run. So I guess this is something like Hello World in Zig. Let's see what they say here. Oh, we don't want to install now, we just want to try it. Okay, let's go here. Let's say Zig Hello World. I don't have to type. Yeah, it looks pretty much the same like this one here. So let's say const std import std. Yeah, it looks like it's importing the standard IO built in. So this one here doesn't have it. Maybe this is because it's running online. So I don't know why they have this part here. And then let's see the main function, public function main void. So function that doesn't return anything. std debug print. Yeah, this looks like the standard print method that they use. And this is some kind of string interpolation. So there is a comma. This is like this dot. I don't understand for this moment what does it do. So this is pretty straightforward. So they have this first parameter which looks like a string. So they say they don't use strings. So I guess it's an array of characters officially. Then this is the comma to separate with the second parameter, but I don't understand at this point why they have a dot here. And I understand that they here try to inject the world here, so that's why we see world here. And then on the second place, okay, that's why they imported this built-in, probably because they just wanted to show which Zig version they are using. So let's try to comment this out and see if this is going to work like this. Okay, waiting. No, there's an error. What does it say? Too few arguments. So it, I forgot to say here. Okay, yeah. So this is what we need, just one string to inject. Well, not string, but array of characters. Yeah, it works. So that's why they imported this part, just to have the version of Zig display. So I guess this is actually the simplest way of saying hello world. We import the standard IO, sorry, and then there is this main function. I guess it's not going to work without. So let's try to break the code. So I guess this is not going to work, but just to test. Yeah. Yeah, so they do expect to have this main function as an entry. Okay, so let's see here if we can just inject this world without this dot and curly braces. Yeah, it's an error, so there has to be, of course, I still don't understand what it is, why the dot in the syntax, but we will find out soon. Okay, just to double check that this works again. Yep. And I want to try just one more thing. So let's try to just put a number here and see if it will inject a number or there has to be something done with the number, like the literal. Yeah, they don't do that. Okay, this is what they mentioned. Okay, yeah, by the way, because we are running it here, I guess Zig is compiled language. And because this is live, probably it gets compiled. Let's actually see. Let's try to search. Is Zig compiled? I believe it is. Yeah, I mean, it said like before it's comp time, yeah. Like I just forgot. Of course, it's compiled language. But I just forgot in a second. So yeah, this is, I guess, because when we're running here, it looks like it's just running the code, but actually because there is a delay, so it does compile in the background, of course, and then it is running it. That's why we have this. Let's see how the error message actually looks like, if it suggests something like Rust would. No, it does not. But it doesn't matter. So this was just like to test how this would run. In Rust, you basically also cannot do, I mean, you can, if you wanted to have expressions, you cannot do that, something similar to this, but doesn't matter. Let's not talk about the Rust. So yeah, so it looks like here only strings can be injected in this way, and these other data types, there has to be probably another method or another syntax that you use. Let's actually try that just to see if we can use a literal like here and just do it in this way. No, okay. So definitely I will read this I will read the documentation and we will start from there. Okay. So I don't want this first video to be long. I have no clue how much would be long, how much is okay. But let's stop here for now. Let's stop here for now. And we will continue next time. Tomorrow I will stream. So tomorrow I guess I will be starting with numbers, with the integers, and let's see how they work in Zig. Okay, thanks anyone. Thanks everyone for being here, and see you next time. Bye bye.